If you're new to our channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.
It may be way early to get in the ground, but we have people that listen all over the country and the world, so it's just applicable when you're able to do such. Planning and planting your garden. There's things that you need to know, whether you're an advanced gardener or a new gardener, because we see on Facebook and we get emails, hey, I'm a new gardener. What do I need to do?
Right. So the first thing you want to think about is where you're going to plant. If you're going to do a raised bed, if you're going to plant in your ground, if you're going to do containers, what have you.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got to know what you want to do, and then you can go about getting the information that is required in order for you to achieve the success in which you want to have, whether, again, raised beds, containers, ground garden. So what do we need to do? What do we need to know?
So you want to make sure you have 6 to 10 hours of sunlight minimum for most of the plants you're going to grow.
Most. There are a
some
lot.
shade plants, right. But I'm talking about if you're wanting to grow tomatoes, which is a very popular plant, peppers, beans, all of that stuff, that fruits, you want to make sure you have that sunlight.
Right. Just because it is sunny where you're at currently, look above.
Right. So right now, we still don't... We're still in the very end of winter, and it's not spring yet. So you might look, oh, my whole backyard gets sun, but you don't realize that you have your neighbor's tree that's hanging over half of your yard.
Now, just because you have a shade tree in the backyard doesn't mean you can't grow peppers or tomatoes or eggplants. For when you watch some of our videos, the predominant videos that you see, the garden is in Holly's mom's backyard. We have a giant maple tree that shades portions of the garden for about an hour to 2 hours a day, peak afternoon. It's fine. That still allows a lot of morning light, a lot of afternoon light. It's not shaded all day long. So it does, in the hottest portions of the day, having that shade does help reduce the stress on the plants that it's shading. The tomatoes they don't mind having a couple of hours of less intense sunlight when it's 90 degrees outside at the peak times of summer.
Right, definitely. So that's something to consider is where you're going to plant. Also, if you don't know what your soil situation is under the ground, under your grass, you might want to figure it out, or you might want to consider something like raised beds, straw bale gardening, or containers. Or
a soil test from mysavvysoil.com. You can get that and find out what you get the item. You order it from online, and if you can go to My Soil Savvy and use a coupon code, you can go to our website and find that. And you can get that, you ship it up to them, they do an analyzation of the soil, and then they will email the information back, whether you're high in nitrogen, sulfur, whatever the case is, then you can go ahead and do that. The key here is knowing when to plant. And by doing that, you will need to have knowledge of when to start seeds indoors or when to plant stuff outside.
Well, I think first you need to figure out what you want to plant.
Well, that's too.
So, for example, if you like a lot of tomatoes, you're probably going to grow those. If you want to grow something like onions, you got to figure that out. If you don't like something and you're like, oh, my grandma grew this garden and she grew XYZ, so I should grow XYZ, but I always hated okra, then don't grow okra.
You always hate on okra.
I always hate on okra and celery. Typically okra.
So so we've started seeds indoors, and you don't have to start seeds indoors. But in order to find out if you're new and you want to get something that absolutely is foolproof, that you can't make a mistake on, Clyde's vegetable planting chart is the chart that you need to get.
It's a $5 chart with free shipping, and it's really awesome because
no matter where
you are, you have this sliding chart. You choose is it your frost date or
your last average frost date? You match that line up, and then everything corresponds with it.
It has all these categories of vegetables, and if you're not sure, you choose like the closest vegetable to it. So if you're growing like parsnips or something, that's a bad example. If you're growing like turnips and rutabaga is not on there, then you would just choose kind of rutabaga for the turnip turnips because they're kind of similar.
Yeah, and you can do that. You can order it. It comes within days.
It's ClydesVegetablePlantingChart.com.
Yes.
And he's a real nice guy out of Missouri or something.
Southern Missouri.
There you go.
So what other things do we need to know? We've talked about when to plant. We've talked about where to plant, what to plant in, how much to plant. Let's talk about how much to plant, because that is something that people stumble up on. How much should you plant of a particular variety?
It kind of depends on what you're going to use it for and how you're going to use it. So if you're going to use it fresh exclusively, you just want to have a fresh salad or use your tomatoes fresh or store those potatoes, whatever, then you want to figure that out. You might need 10 feet, but if you're going to preserve it, then you might need 20 feet. You just kind of have to figure that out. There's lots of charts online, and I think we're going to talk about that
in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But let's analyze that a little deeper. If you are planting tomatoes, let's pick tomatoes because almost everybody, I know a couple people that don't like tomatoes, but I'm still friends with them, so it's okay. If you're going to plant tomatoes, you want to have enough for what you intend to use them for. Are you just going to eat them, can them? What's your intentions cooking with them? Mm-hmm. So if you're just going to, you want to plant about 3 times more than what you actually intend to use or have intentions of using. Because if you only plant 2 tomato plants on your patio in a container, and you have problems with one, you've lost 50% of your crop. If you plant 10 and you lose 2, that 50% has decreased. Your percentage is better.
So with that being said, if in that case where you're like, I only have this much space for everything I want to grow,
right,
then you might want to consider using some containers to enhance and add on to what you're growing.
And we grow in 2,000 square feet of ground, raised beds, straw bales, and we do containers because we want to show the versatility that all of these methods of gardening can provide for you. But yeah, plant more than what you think you're going to need, because here's the thing. You can always find somebody to get green beans to, tomatoes to, eggplants to. It's harder to go, man, I wish I would have had 2 more plants, because that would have, and then fill in the blank.
Right. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Also, what you want to do is you want to think, am I going to do starts versus seeds? And I don't know, we were watching some gardening video the other night, and the guy said, if this is your first year growing, you might just want to buy starts, which I would have to...
Nothing wrong with
it. I would have to agree with, because it teaches you how to take care of that plant, and then you can focus on the growing part versus starting seeds, feeling frustrated, and you're frustrated at the beginning part of your garden season, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this sucks, I hate it. So instead, if you buy starts and start that way, then you'll be able to focus on the portion of learning how to manage the space and the plants and everything else.
Yeah, and doing the starts, or buying the starts from the independent garden center, like Blue Mel's here in Milwaukee, is not a bad decision to make, because we also buy starts. We try to start everything from seed because you have a much more vast variety in which you can choose from versus the 15 or 20 varieties at most that many garden centers provide for you. And you do have more control over what the plant's doing, what you're feeding it. If the garden center says they're organic, that's great, but some of the bigger box stores are not organic. They just do what they need to do to keep the plant alive till you buy it, and then it's your deal, what you have to worry about it with.
Right. And then the other thing is that you want to keep it simple. So
people make it far too,
and you're going to go to your independent garden center and you might start seeing stuff and getting like really excited, and all of a sudden you've bought too much stuff or you've bought all these fancy tools. You can keep it really simple. You don't necessarily need a lot of fancy tools. You also can find tools sometimes at thrift stores or
yard sales.
We found our garden tine, I think, for $5.
Garden fork.
Yeah,
$5. That's about a 40 or 50, and it had a wooden handle.
Yeah, it's
those
you
can't
nice
find very much.
Sturdy and old. So it's been around a long time. So you can definitely find good deals. You might have a friend or family member or something who has extras. You can say, hey, I just started gardening, and they might be like, oh, I got this extra.
Most gardeners have 5 to 8 shovels. That's just
we have like extra trowels.
But keep it simple, and that's what we're advocating here. People make things far too difficult in every aspect of life. If you're new to gardening or you're newer to gardening, understand what you can manage. If you feel you can manage a 50 square foot garden, start with 50, or here's even a better solution to the situation. If you have the space to do such in the ground, prepare 100 square feet. Only use 50 square feet this year. And then prepare in the fall the other 50 square feet. So next spring, if you feel you can double what you were able to do this year, then you can have 100 square feet, and then the same thing next year, prepare 150 and only plant 100. It's not a bad thing to only plant a small garden.
No,
we do 2,000 square feet, and yes, maybe we're excessive in that aspect of gardening. And not to defend myself, but I grew up in an agricultural, big ag industry where I understood more thoroughly about management of fields and crop rotation and understanding the space and using that more than Holly. You grew up with a very small...
About a 4x4 area. 4x6, something like that.
And as with your background, you would not have, if you were independently doing that, you wouldn't have been able to successfully handle 500, 600, 700 square feet.
No, I tell people all the time, if we were doing that together, I would have a much smaller area, on top of the fact that I would probably just possibly even have containers as opposed to a large in-ground garden.
So in review, we want to keep it simple. Starts or seeds. Get the Clyde's vegetable planting chart.
Think about where to plant.
Think about where to plant.
What you want to plant.
And get a soil test. mysoilsavvy.com. You use coupon code TWVG19 to save 10% at checkout. So you're going to save some money on that. And you can get that going to get your garden planted. And you want to plant at the appropriate time when it comes to adequate soil temperature, adequate air temperature, and all of that goes along with.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.